today I'm here to talk to you guys about that question that a lot of you have asked yourselves over time, myself included, and that is, should I go for it? And what do I mean by that? Well, it means, should I go for being a photographer? Now, if you have to ask yourself that question, maybe it's not the right time. And this whole discussion today is really in response to an email I got from a guy named Matt, who's from Montreal, and he's been working in photography for about 5 years. He's got some film cameras, he's got a D90, he doesn't really know studio lighting, and from what I gather, he doesn't really have any solid jobs on the table. He considered doing a BA in photography, but he doesn't have the funds to do so. And overall, I'm getting the sense that maybe he's a little bit cash poor. However, he's also interested in selling everything or going into debt or taking out loans to buy a whole bunch of pro gear to pursue photography. And I'm going to say to Matt, no. Now, I don't mean no, don't pursue your dream as a photographer. I'm going to say do not go into debt, and do not also think that just because you're going to go out and spend $5, $10, whatever, $15,000 on pro equipment, that's going to ensure that you have a career in photography. Oftentimes there are photographers, young photographers, that are shooting with pocket cameras that get scooped up. You know, you hear those overnight success stories about some people that they just have this thing and they get discovered and they get scooped up and then they can afford the gear. Then you've got people like Howard Stern, who can go out to any camera store, put down his American Express black card, spend 10 grand on gear or 20 grand, whatever, and take photos. So if you're not one of those two people, which is the vast majority of us on the planet here, I think that it's more important to come up with a strategy, come up with a plan. Set short-term goals and set long-term goals. And why I say setting both is this, because if you only have these long-term goals, the payoff is so far in the future and so far in the distance that maybe you're going to lose sight of that. So when I say set short-term goals, think about ways that you can improve your craft as a photographer. Think about different things that you can do along the way to become better at your craft. Okay, and what are some ways that we can do this? Well, number one, if you say to me that you're not really skilled with studio strobes, go take some workshops. Learn how to do it. Learn from people that know. Go in there, workshops, they're all different prices. For a few $100s, you can spend the day working with some professional photographers. You'll be able to use professional gear. You'll get a sense of what it's like. Once you get that core knowledge, you get over that little bit of a hump there, then when you can save a little bit more money, rent some studio lighting and do a photo shoot. Bring a friend, bring a co-worker, whoever it is, just somebody who's just up for it, and just say, look, let's have some fun with this. I'm going to be testing out some equipment. I'm learning the equipment here. At the end of the day, I'll make you some nice photos. You can use them on your Facebook. You can use them on your Twitter. Wink, wink. Because you know what? If somebody has a photo that you've done of them on their Facebook or Twitter, that's just free promotion and marketing for your brand, okay? And brand is a huge thing here. That's very important to brand yourself as a photographer. The sea of photographers out there is vast. It is an enormous ocean. And we are just, so minuscule in that giant sea that trying to differentiate ourselves from other photographers is no easy task. And that only can be done in a multitude of ways. Number one, you want to make sure that your work is solid. Number two, you want to make sure that you have the ability to actually deliver. So if somebody hires you to do something, that you can actually execute the job, that you can deliver the files within a reasonable time, and that you can manage this entire process. Because nobody wants to deal with a photographer who's learning on the job and or one who's just completely flaky. So when a client sends you an email or leaves you a voice message, you don't wait a day or two to get back to somebody. Granted, look, we're all busy, and you certainly can make that clear, but until you're really in demand, and even then it's not that cool, you don't want to let people wait, because people want to know that they can count on you. There's so many facets to running the business of being a photographer that goes so far beyond the actual photography itself. I mean, there are some amazing photographers out there that may not necessarily be able to run a business. And then there's some photographers out there that are very good at what they do, but have incredible business sense. And I think that there's a tremendous balance that has to be established between the two, because that's going to help you ensure your ability to run a business. So maybe rather than just diving into this BA program in photography, thinking that you're going to go and spend 2 or 4 years in a college program and that's going to give you the ability to run a photography business, maybe you need to think about assisting with a professional photographer or two. Maybe you need to think about taking some business courses and understanding what it takes to run a business, how to understand, maintaining cash flow coming in and out. The red flags that really went off for me was when you were talking about if you should take out loans, go into debt, and risk credit. Okay, now that's something you never want to do, because think about it, the more you grow your business, the more you're going to the more you're going to need money. You're going to need credit cards, because if you go onto a big job and you need to hire crew and you need to buy all kinds of supplies and stuff like that, if you don't have credit, nobody's going to take care of that for you. You're not going to say to your assistant, hey, I need you to go and put $5,000 on your card. Even if it's going to get reimbursed by the client, you can't be the one in charge who has shaky credit, who can't get the job done. You're going to come to a point in your life where you might want to buy a house or an apartment. You might want to buy a car. If your credit is screwed, you're going to be in a really, really bad place. You also mentioned in your email that you didn't know if you were good enough to compete to be successful. Well, you know what? Maybe that's because you're not. And, there's nothing wrong with that. It's something that you have to build toward. The old saying is, when in doubt, don't. And it sounds to me like you're full of a lot of doubt. And I think a lot of photographers are in this position where it seems really glamorous, being a photographer. And let me tell you something, it's the best job I've ever had. I cannot even tell you how lucky I feel to be in this position where I can make a living as a photographer. But it's not necessarily luck, it's hard work and opportunity. And that's the thing, the harder you work at this, the more the opportunities will come. So once you decide to make that decision to jump into it, that's really when the hard work's going to begin, I can tell you that much. So just some things to take note here. Number one, save your money. If you don't have money to buy pro gear, don't go hemorrhaging yourself into debt and jeopardizing your credit rating to buy gear. Save your money, be patient, take your time with this one, okay? Work hard. Work harder than you ever worked before. Take personal work. Do jobs on, photo jobs on nights and weekends whenever you can. Instead of taking that vacation to sit on the beach somewhere, maybe think to yourself, you know what, if I really want to do this photography stuff, I'm going to actually do a photo project. Or maybe incorporate that into your vacation, whatever. It doesn't have to be so hardcore. Learn as much as you can. Learn from people that are better than you. People that are better photographers or more experienced photographers are always going to elevate your level of photography. Go to workshops. There's plenty of them no matter where you are. You can figure out, in your area, different types of workshops, and you can learn skills that you don't necessarily have. Think about going the assisting route. Now, granted, the pay is crap, but the experience might pay off. Set yourself some realistic goals. Say, you know what, in a few months from now, I want to be proficient with studio lighting, and maybe in 6 months from now, I want to have my first gig assisting or even beyond that. Think about those types of things. Be prepared for rejection. Just because you say you're a photographer and you have intent to do it, doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to be jumping out of the woodwork to hire you. So you have to understand that it can take time. Get jobs and secure some jobs before you overly invest into your business. I've seen this all the time. They're photographers and then they list their equipment and you can't even believe the kind of stuff that they have. And you ask them what they're working on and they have a job here and there maybe, but they've got thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars invested in gear that's not making them any money. Now look, if you can afford it, fine. Again, the Howard Sterns of the world can just go out there and spend the money, but look, the guy works hard, he makes a great living, and he can afford expensive toys. If you're not in that position, you got to start slow. You start with one good pro body. You start with one good lens. You rent gear as you need it. You can rent pro bodies, okay? Granted, it's good to know your gear inside and out, but look, it's not one or the other. Networking. This is a great thing. You got to put yourself out there. If you want to get into music photography, go to clubs, go to bands, talk to the bands after the show, before the show. Talk to the promoter, talk to the booking agent, talk to different people, get ingratiated in that group. If you want to do fashion, it's the same kind of thing. Try to align yourself with folks that might be able to bring opportunities to you. And you can always start slow. You can always say, look, I'm building my portfolio. I would love to do some shots of you guys in exchange for using the photos for your site. I want to use them for my site. You take care of each other, and that's going to get you work. Next thing you know, you've got a body of work because you've done this exchange. And if you're taking care of yourself and you're saving your money, when the time comes and the jobs come, you'll have the resources to go and put toward it. Okay. Online and social presence. I think this is really, really important. I think that, again, when I was talking about that enormous sea of photographers that are out there, trying to differentiate yourself is by having some kind of an online presence. Now, Matt, I'm not coming down on you personally. I'm just saying I get emails like this all the time, and you kind of hit all of these trigger points over here. Matt sent me a Tumblr link to his photos. Okay, great. Look, Tumblr is fantastic. I think everybody should probably have a Tumblr because it's a really nice way to share your images out there, but it is not a portfolio site. You need to build yourself a portfolio site and have a Tumblr blog and have a Facebook page and have a Twitter account and have all of these things firing simultaneously, making your presence out there known, because otherwise one little Tumblr account, unless you're Terry Richardson, is probably not going to garner the attention of a lot of people. So having that online presence, having that network, the social media presence is really important, and working on this every day. You can't think to yourself, I'll put a little bit of time in this, a couple hours a week. Well, look, if you're somebody who doesn't have the time because of your job, you just have to figure out how to make the time. Everybody who really has a passion for it somehow makes the time for it. And I want you to also do the same thing. So the question is, should I go for it? Should I go into debt? Should I take out a bunch of loans? Should I risk my credit rating to buy a bunch of pro gear to become a photographer? That's putting the cart before the horse, okay? Do the work. Do the hard work. Unfortunately, there's a lot of hard work. You don't necessarily often see all of that part. You typically, when you hear of a professional photographer that's like a Zach Arias or Peter Hurley or one of those guys spent years and years and years working at their craft before they became who they are. It's the same thing with a rock band. You never hear about, when you hear about that new band, you think, man, these guys are so cool, they're so fresh, they just hit the scene. You don't hear about the 10 years that they spent driving around in a van, eating ramen noodles, sleeping on people's floors and slumming it like that. You really only hear about the part when they've made it. And there's a lot of hard work that goes into this. So that's what I'm going to say about this. I would love to hear back from you or anybody in this position in a few months' time and see, kind of what kind of strategy you've had and what kind of plan you've made and how it's paid off. The last thing I want to hear is that you've hemorrhaged yourself into debt and that you've risked your credit rating and that you've got loans that are up to here and you can't pay them back, because then you're going to really be in a bad place. So I wish all you guys luck out there, and I also encourage you to work really, really hard at it as well, because I think the combination of the two will help to open the doors for those opportunities. So that's it for now. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and we'll see you soon.